Hey there, kiddo. How we doing today? Yeah? You ready for bed? You brush your teeth? Let me smell. Minty fresh. Love that. So, do you have your water? Yeah? Well, I have mine. So, oh, you want a sip? You can have a sip. Hang on. And your turn. Drink up, good. Now, what was the best part of your day? Ooh, learning about Greek mythology. That's very cool. I remember when I was about your age, I was really into Greek mythology too. When I learned about it, Zeus and Poseidon and Hades and Helen and all the stories of Icarus and Sisyphus and I was fascinated. It's cool stuff. I even had one of my teachers let me bring home one of her own personal books on Greek mythology because I was so into it. Yeah. Is it true? Well, I don't personally believe so, but, they probably believed it. What is religion? Wow. Oh, we're going, that's a very profound question. We're getting into some interesting philosophy here. Well, let me start with the main ones that are out there currently, and then we can kind of go back from there. But currently, in the world, there are four main religions. Number one currently is Christianity, with about 2.38 billion adherents, people that believe in Christianity. Second, I believe, is Islam, so Muslims, and they're about 1.1 billion, followed by, I think it's Hindus, Islam, and I think it's secular. So whenever you hear somebody say secular, that just means kind of like non-religious. Okay, so atheists, agnostics, just people that non-religious practicing, secular. And they make up like 1 billion, I think. And then I think the next one is Hindu, which again is I think close to 1 billion, and then Buddhism, which is like 500 million or something. It's less. And Judaism is like way down there on the list, even though like all the three monotheistic religions, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, all are stemmed from the Old Testament, but they're very different religions. And each one has their beliefs. They have their prophets, their god or gods, So when I say monotheistic, that mono means one, and theistic means God, so one God. And so, like the Greeks, for example, would have been considered polytheistic. Poly meaning many, many gods. Same with what might be called like pagan religions, Native Americans, people who have their religion is based more around Mother Nature, So you have like the sun god, the moon god, the god of water, the god of, animals, this animal, and they viewed it that way. Keep in mind, I'm not a religious scholar. Now, your grandfather, when I was born, he was a Seventh-day Adventist minister. That's a type of Christianity, okay? It was born in like the 1800s, like the mid 1800s, in the kind of wild and woolly days of Christianity in America. So the two main new types of Christianity that stuck were Mormons, Church of Jesus Christ and the Latter-day Saints, and Seventh-day Adventism. Those are the two that kind of like made it out of that interesting time in American history. And then the old ones kind of stuck around. So you have the Catholics, and you have the Protestants, and there's a bunch of different types of Protestants. You can have Lutherans, Baptists, Methodists, and it's all like their own little tweaks and interpretations of of Christianity. But they're they all fundamentally kind of believe the same thing. And like I said, your grandfather was a minister, and he left the ministry just after I was born. So the story goes, or if I'm remembering this correctly. And, my mother was raised very strict. So your grandmother was very strict Seventh-day Adventist. So, high dresses, you never showed your collarbone or like your chest, your cleavage area. Long dresses, so the dresses went all the way down to the ankle. Very, very conservative. And that's how she grew up. She was taught that humans and dinosaurs walked on the earth at the same time. I know. Well, you may think that's silly, but I mean, if you put yourself in the mindset of somebody from the 1850s, and the massive lack of scientific knowledge, it's not crazy that people did some, let's just say, creative interpretations of the history of the earth. But did I tell you the story when my mom was blown away when I was in kindergarten? I think I was in kindergarten. We went on this family trip, and we were out in Utah, Dinosaur National Monument. And I wasn't cognizant of this. I was told this by them later. But when my mom first saw the dinosaur bones, her literal reaction was, "Oh my God, they're real." Like she had been taught that, like, it wasn't real. It was all like kind of a hoax. And, it was shocking to her. But, so, even though, my father, your grandpa, had left the church, and we were a pretty secular household, again, meaning we just didn't practice religion, kind of agnostic, atheist agnostic. It was never discouraged for me, for example, to go to church with my friends. I was invited by my friends to attend church. I attended several times. And I think the question that you're getting at is, well, who's right? And, what's the point? And that's where it gets squirrely. I'm very curious where your intellectual curiosities will take you. But for me, I got really into religion and Christianity when I was in my late teens. Specifically, I was very like anti-religion. I was very, there was these famous dudes at that time. It was Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, and Richard Dawkins, and they were kind of like these almost militant atheists. Maybe that's the wrong word, but they were very, very anti-Christianity. And there's this other person, I'm forgetting his name, but they were known as like the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. This is right around the turn of the century, so right around 2000. These guys are really gaining steam. Maybe up into like the mid 2005, 2010s. And I was, like I said, there was a time in my life when I was very anti-religion. However, the older I've gotten, well, it occurs to me, and you may make your own ideas on this at some point, that for whatever reason, religion is hardwired into our brains, our genetics. We know, as far back as we can tell in human history, which fascinatingly enough keeps getting pushed back. There's these recent discoveries in the last 5 or 10 years, places like Göbekli Tepe, and there's this amazing pyramid down in Mexico, and they're now realizing that, these structures are over 12, hush Lucy, these structures are over like 12,000 years old, and they were very advanced. Like, these structures were clearly astronomically aligned. They're these huge, what are called megalithic stones that weigh like over 2,000 pounds. And they were able to move these stones and create what I think essentially were temples, and they were mapping the night sky, and I'm sure they had their deities and their constellations, and so, to my knowledge, as long as there's been people, there's been religion. We ask the big questions. Why are we here? That's a really deep question, Why are we here? Is it pointless? There's many philosophies on this, There are some people that are called nihilists, who just believe that nothing matters and there's no point to anything. And maybe, I don't know, I'm not a nihilist. It's what I've found, though, is in the absence of it seems that in the absence of an organized religion, like Christianity, Islam, Hindu, Buddhism, Judaism, that people, they kind of tend to create their own religions. Even if they're secular, as in they don't believe specifically in a god or gods, they kind of create their own rules that are similar to a religion. One of the great tenets of Christianity is that, and I think, why it became so popular. It's like, well, their philosophy says you're born in sin. Okay? This goes back to Adam and Eve and how Eve ate from the tree of knowledge, but it was actually the devil. And after she did, then she convinced Adam to, and that was the first sin and the fall of man. And from that point forward, humans were sinners. And then where Christianity comes in is in the neighborhood of 2025, 23 years ago. There was Jesus. And according to Christians, Jesus was the Son of God. That God impregnated Mary of the virginal birth. I know it gets complicated, but he was the earthly representation of God, and he would go on and die for our sins so that we could be saved. Is I think the fundamental Christian adherence. And so, I mean, it's interesting that there's redemption by believing in this person, deity. There's something in Christianity, I think it's called the triad: the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. If I'm honest, though, I'm not really, really well versed in it. But here's what I I'm kind of wandering all over the place. Well, what I encourage you to do is to explore, okay, with an open mind, because I think that there is great ancient wisdom in all of the ancient texts, whether it be the Bible, the Quran. In Buddhism, they have the Bhagavad Gita. There's the famous phrase in the Bhagavad Gita, spoken, was it by Heisenberg or one of the guys at the first atomic bomb? And it says, I think it's the Bhagavad Gita is quoting Shiva, and it says, "I am become death, destroyer of worlds." Hairy, right? Isn't that? It's a wild, I am become death, destroyer of worlds. Anyway, great quote. But within each of the ancient religious texts, I think there's great value. I think there's great wisdom. I think where religion gets squirrely for me is it, and this goes back to human nature. The thing we like almost more, and I'm talking about all humans, the thing we like more than almost anything else is being right. We love it. We love being right. And it's really fun to make other people wrong, because that makes you look right, and it makes you look smart, and it makes you look good, and that's the whole ego thing attached to it, which I would invite you to consider is maybe not the most healthy. So, my issue with organized religion is that they all claim to be 100% right. I'm not sure about Hindus and Buddhists as much. I'm really speaking more about Christians and Muslim, because those are the two biggies. They claim to be 100% right, and if you don't believe them, you're wrong and bad and maybe going to hell. I don't like that. I don't like that, because, even as I said, there's 2.3 billion Christians and 1.1 billion Muslims. So what is that, 4.5, 4.4, a little more than half the Earth's population a little more than half, with about 8 billion people, give or take. So, about half the planet is neither Christian nor Muslim. But I don't think Christians think Muslims are going to heaven, and I don't think Muslims think Christians are going to heaven. So it gets really squirrely. You have most people not subscribing to these religions, and, according to them, if you don't subscribe, then your soul is probably not going to be saved. I struggle with that, there's things that I really love about religion and Christianity. I love it is mostly about love, forgiveness, loving thy neighbor, be a good person, don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat, the importance of family and community. These grounding things I think are very important. And, when you take away religion, it's such a fundamental part of our community. People get together on, in the case of Christianity, for the most part. Seventh-day Adventists are different. They go to church on Saturday, but that's neither here nor there. If you're Christian, once a week you're going to church on Sunday, and you're just opining about how were you that week? Were you a good person that week? Is there something you need to confess or clean up? How are you being in the world? Are you being selfish, or are you being charitable? And, you're with a group of people and you sing, how much your father, I love singing. You get to sing, and usually after church there's either a potluck or some kind of a luncheon. It's just a time of community. And when you get rid of that, the problem with the secular types is we haven't figured out a way to recreate that sense of community, that sense of collective worship, where you go, I'm humbled, there is something above me that is more powerful than me, which I do believe. I don't know what it is, but something. But you're humbled, take some of the ego out of being a human. Because it's very easy to get very, very, self-righteous. I'm right, you're wrong, I'm good, you're bad. And I would really invite you to consider that the world is much more complex than that. It's a lot of gray area. It's nuanced. Folks that want simple black and white answers, while convenient, are not often necessarily correct. The truth often lies in nuance, and is complex. And you gotta really think about it. Why do I believe this? What do other people believe? Why do they believe what they believe? And like my father and mother before me, they were always very encouraging for me to explore, come up with my own ideas. So I love that you're getting into mythology, because it's the stories, they're great. They're like, the heroic tale of Homer and the Odyssey, the hero's journey, the struggle. You know, Sisyphus isn't the one that has to push the rock up the boulder. You know, it's like there's all these metaphorical stories embedded within. Same with Christianity, and there's so many tales and stories embedded that are valuable, that teach wonderful lessons about how to be in the world and how to take on what is a very complex life. And I'm reminded of a Louis C.K. joke. He's a comedian, and he looks out of the audience and he says, you know, of all the religions, listen everybody, the Christians won. The Christians won. And the audience is kind of like, you know, uncomfortably laughing. Like, I don't get it, you know. And then Louis C.K. goes, I'll prove it to you. What year is it? It's 2023, right? AD. Anno Domini. So, it's supposedly roughly 2023 years after the death of Christ. And pretty much the whole world has adapted this calendar. So you have BC, before Christ, AD, Anno Domini, or after death. And then you have, there's a couple new ones like CE, which is common time, and BCE, which is before common time, to get away from the religious connotation. But it kind of doesn't matter because they basically describe the same time period. So whether you call it AD or CE, you're really talking about like the same time period, just minus the religious connotation. But yeah, you know, I would say explore, keep an open mind, be curious, okay? Ask questions. I will try to my best ability to answer them. And maybe if I don't know something, we can go explore it together. But, you know, with all things, there's good and there's bad. And with religion, there's good and there's bad. There's things that I love about it. There's things I dislike about it. There's great lessons and values and community and structure, which I'm very fond of. But I just don't like making other people wrong on a mass level. That sits with me weird. I don't know. Yeah, your dad's kind of a like a pragmatist. I'm like, well, I mean, but I don't like hard line, like, this is the way it is, this is good, this is bad. I mean, you know, don't murder people, don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal. Like, those are kind of obvious. But, you know, from a more wholesome, you know, you step back and look at it from the wide angle. You know, who's right? I don't know. Are the Christians right? Are the Jews right? Are the Muslims right? Are the Hindus right? Are the Buddhists right? Are the Taoists right? Confucianists? Are the pagans right? Maybe we should be worshiping Mother Earth and the Pachamama and animals and, you know, the water spirit and this. I don't know, you know. I really don't. But I very much encourage you to explore. Be curious. I'm very I'm very curious as to what you discover. Okay? Alright. Well, I think it is. Well, I was very chatty there, so it's past your bedtime. Let's go to sleep. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. Sleepy fingers. Sleepy fingers. Sleepy fingers. Sleepy fingers. And I look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Love you, buddy. Sweet dreams.